Thank you for joining us for The Drive Back, the movie podcast where we imitate our favorite thing to do after a movie, which of course is to talk about it on the way home. I'm Garrett, and as always, I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, Adrian.
Hey.
And today, we thought we'd do a fun discussion topic and talk about what we think are the top 10 directors working in Hollywood today. There's always been groups of directors that have been very highly revered through the course of time, and we thought we would take a stab at creating our own. So all of this and more coming up on The Drive Back. Alright, so talking directors here. The ones that we think are the primary directors of the age. And I had presented this idea, and we'd kind of kicked around the idea of doing a director's list for a while. Because one of the things that I had always been under the impression of is there was the 4 directors that came out of film school at the same time that, I don't remember the exact name, but it's kind of like the Dirty Dozen type, name for these directors.
I didn't know about this.
So there's 4 directors that all came out of film school at the same time, and they're all revered highly. You had Francis Ford Coppola, you had George Lucas, you had Steven Spielberg, and you had Martin Scorsese.
Huh, I didn't realize they all did, I guess, at the same time.
Yeah, it's all around the same time, and they came out, and obviously their career paths took wildly different directions. Some of them stayed closer than others, like Spielberg and Lucas. But that also kind of got me thinking, other directors that have ended up being some of the considered like the best of all time. Obviously Spielberg, really kind of comes in at the top of that list for that time period, but also like Robert Zemeckis, who did Back to the Future and Forrest Gump, but also James Cameron, who did the Terminator films and Aliens.
An Avatar.
Exactly. Yeah, and then building upon... Yeah, literally the biggest movie of the 90s. Whether or not it's good is another story. But they built on top of the original directors that were considered big. David Lean, who did Lawrence of Arabia that we watched on the channel. John Ford, who's a huge Western director. Michael Curtiz, I believe is the first name, did Casablanca. Akira Kurosawa, who did Seven Samurai, which is one of the first movies we ever reviewed. Stanley Kubrick, Billy Wilder, Alfred Hitchcock. I mean, that list goes on and on. But we thought we should do our own. So, did you have any kind of process or thinking when you were picking what you thought were the top directors working today?
I feel like my movie journey is very interesting. I do know of who directors are, but I definitely feel like there's a very eclectic group of them where if they're attached to the movie, I'm very interested.
Mm-hmm.
So those names are more what kind of are on my list, are the ones that definitely have the staying power with me, where if there's a trailer, regardless of what that trailer is, if it says this person's name is on it, I'm just automatically going to go see it because I know that director's work well enough and their vibe well enough that I know that I'm going to go see it. So that's how I chose my list, is that kind of just the most prominent in my head.
Gotcha. And I sort of same for me. I looked at it in terms of not only have these directors made consistently good films, but also ones that are iconic in their own ways and are either forging their own path, or whether they're just starting, or they've been around in the industry for quite a while. But it is worth it to note we do have a couple of honorable mentions that I feel like we should get out there into the woodworks. The first one I wanted to call out was Bong Joon-ho, which didn't make either of our top 5s, the director of Parasite and Snowpiercer, a very highly revered director, but didn't end up making the cut on our list. Also wanted to shout out Zack Snyder. Love him or hate him, he is a very visually unique director and definitely has his own look. And also wanted to call out Greta Gerwig, who was the director of Lady Bird and Little Women. Didn't make the list because I don't think she's done enough work yet to really justify getting on there. And then also Chloe Zhao, who did the Oscar-winning Nomadland last year and is doing the upcoming Eternals movie. Again, just hasn't done enough to get on our radar yet.
Although Eternals does look phenomenal from the trailer. I'm so stoked for that movie.
I'm hoping it's going to be very, very good. So, But let's go ahead and get into these lists.
I have a runner-up as well.
Sure.
One of my runner-ups is William Eubank. He did Love, The Signal, and one other Moon?
Underwater, I thought he did.
Underwater, yeah, Underwater. I've seen all three of them, and while they're more artistic, I guess Underwater is probably the most mainstream film of the bunch. But just a great director all around, and I think severely underrated, and I hope he gets more work for larger projects. I think he really has a lot to bring to the table, so he's on my runner-ups list.
Yeah, I feel like he did as much as he could with Underwater, so
I feel like that was a huge kind of, don't say this, but dipping his toes into the field of directing.
No pun or full pun intended. That is up to you to decide. But let's go ahead and get into our lists. We've each selected 5 directors that we feel should be in the top running for the best directors of like the 2000s on. And we've took great care. Each of us have selected different directors so that we don't have any kind of overlap. But Adrian, what is your first director to add to that list?
Yes, my first director is, I'm sure a lot of these are going to be on both of our lists, especially this one, but is Christopher Nolan.
Yes.
From his most recent being Tenet, but Inception and Interstellar being one of my absolute all-time favorite movies. Ever since the Dark Knight trilogy, and even Memento, like let's go all the way back. Just constant hits, no misses really. Actually, you could argue that Tenet was his most like controversial one yet, just because people didn't really get it. But still a phenomenal movie, and just the vision of a director to take these concepts and bring them to life, these incredibly abstract and unique concepts, and make a film that is cohesive enough for the average viewer to go and enjoy is truly a talent, and it definitely deserves to be celebrated.
Absolutely, and it deserves to be on every top directors of the 2000s on, because what director since Spielberg do you just know the name of and you immediately know what they've done? Like you say Nolan, Inception, Dark Knight, Interstellar, all these incredible movies come to mind. So,
and even if you can't rattle off all the movies, even if like you're not a huge film buff, when someone says, "Oh, Christopher Nolan did that movie," everyone's ears just kind of perk up. Like it has that. People just know it as the name. It's interesting.
Yeah, and even people who are like not that much into film would be like, "Wait a minute, Christopher Nolan?" And
yeah,
exactly, the ears perk up. So yeah, definitely deserve to be on the list. Even just because of The Dark Knight and Inception alone. I mean, just those two would get anyone onto this list, because The Dark Knight is a pretty much perfect movie.
Well, even Dunkirk though was a huge achievement in film, lining up 3 different timelines. It's just an incredible movie.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't think there's been any misses in my book.
Not yet. I mean, honestly, some people consider Tenet a miss, but I thought
it was good.
I thought it was really good. But awesome, yeah. So Christopher Nolan is the first one to go on to the Drive Back Top 10 Directors of the 2000s on. My first pick is going to be a director that you see in his movies, but you probably don't know the name, most of you maybe, and that is Edgar Wright, who is the director of Baby Driver, of Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Just consistent, well-crafted film after well-crafted film. I mean, even if you don't like the Shaun of the Deads or the Hot Fuzzes or the end of I think it's End of the World. What's the World's End? Excuse me.
The World's End, the pub. Yeah.
They're so crafted perfectly, like how everything leads to something that's going to happen later in the movie. Like every scene is meticulously done. Match cuts are incredible. He just knows what he's doing, and I'm really sad we didn't get his version of Ant-Man, because he was the original director. So,
and you can see, if you've seen any of those movies that Garrett just listed off, you could tell how Ant-Man, that it would fit that concept, that kind of camera humor and the visual humor that comes with him. But I will say, I do think he is a top director, but it's unfortunate that he falls victim to where some of the actors in the movie become more synonymous with the movies than the director himself.
I can see that.
I feel like everyone associates those as Simon Pegg movies, as opposed to Edgar Wright movies. And I feel like that's unfortunate, because he does deserve a ton of credit, because they're his movies, obviously. So yeah, I completely agree with him being on the list.
Absolutely, yeah. And his next movie, which is called Last Night in Soho, looks like to be his first foray into horror. like true horror and not just like a comedy horror. So hopefully it's going to be good. But
I'm excited for it. Yeah.
let's go ahead and jump into your second choice.
My next one is the tried and true, probably on everybody's list if you are into any films nowadays, but it is the Russo Brothers, most notably known for Avengers and the Game. Just for two people, first of all, it's a co-director, right? There's two people.
Two brothers.
And I think, yeah, two brothers, but I think it's really interesting and deserves to be noted that working in tandem with someone is an achievement in and of itself when you're in charge of one of the largest franchises in the world.
And as someone with a sibling, that's even more of a commendation. Like,
even like line up and agree on even a plot is an achievement in and of itself. So
yeah.
The fact that they're able to work together and tie together so many stories with fan service and original plot lines and divert from the source material where needed, and fans love it, I think that alone deserves to put them on any top 10 list, just because of that achievement of actually making such a substantial piece of film that everybody pretty much enjoyed. Like, that, I don't think there was anyone that was really like, this is not good.
Yeah. And if there is, we'll come out there and we'll fight you.
Yeah, they had the weight of the world on their shoulders, and
they carried it through just fine.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the only thing they kind of have against them is that they don't have much besides the films of Marvel. I mean, they did a film called Cherry, which I believe was a Netflix exclusive, which had Tom Holland.
Yeah.
Which apparently wasn't that good. And they do have another movie coming out. We'll see if it's any good. Maybe just the Marvel magic is what they exceed at. Who knows?
That formula, yeah.
But all four of their movies, Captain America Winter Soldier, Captain America Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame, were all triumphs of the MCU. So,
yeah, they're all regarded as good, like, standalone films, even outside of the MCU. People like Winter Soldier, they just say that's a good spy thriller.
Oh, yeah.
A political thriller. It's a good movie.
If you don't look at it like a Marvel movie, you can definitely see, like, the Tom Clancy vibes. You can see a little bit of, like, the Clive Cussler in there, so... but yeah, awesome choice. The Russo brothers, I'm excited to see where they go next, and hopefully they come back to do the next, like, Avengers event movie. But
I hope so, because definitely they've proven that they can carry the weight, and that is not a light weight to carry, for sure.
No, not at all. But nice, adding Joe and Anthony Russo to the director's list.
Write that down.
I've done so already. My next choice is going to be one that kind of goes against what I had said earlier. Someone who is earlier in their directing career, but has nothing but blue skies ahead based on their current work. And that is going to be Jordan Peele, who directed Get Out and Us. He's also written several different movies. He's attached, I think he's producing the next Candyman reboot that's coming out this month or next month. Just someone who has brought a level of meta humor, or not meta humor, but like meta quality to the horror movie genre with Get Out. With the TSA agent who just knows everything that's going on. Like, you don't want to go over there, man. Those white people are crazy. Like, it's just so well written. And like, I thought he did well with the Twilight Zone series that he did for CBS. And he's got a new movie coming out. I don't remember the name of it, but it looks like it's going to be something pretty creepy. And just his directed movies that are just awesome. They're awesome to watch. They're visually engaging, and he's just starting out, but he's done two arguably great movies so far.
I didn't think we would disagree on anything on his top 10 list. I do think he's a good director. I just don't know if he makes my personal top 10. I've been on this podcast. I've gone out and said that I think Get Out and Us got too much overpraised for the time they were released in. I think they're okay. I definitely don't think they're like stand out. I don't think they should have swept or anything or done anything crazy at the awards, but that's my opinion. And everyone is allowed to have this, so he wouldn't make my... So while it wouldn't really be on my top 10 list, it's totally fine that it's like your list, so let's just be like the Russo brothers and work well together and make a great top 10 list.
Hey, it's an art form. Disagreeing is a whole part of the game. So, your third pick for the top 10 list.
My third is Ari Astor, he's done a bunch of stuff, but he did Hereditary, Midsummer, And we have another movie coming up with him, I believe. It's in the works. I haven't heard a title or anything.
There is a title, and I know it's got some big names attached to it, and I think it's pretty different. I don't think it's anything horror related.
No, I just think and I'm excited for that because he's done I mean, I've watched even some of his like old school work that he did for film school, and he's just willing to take film where it doesn't usually go. And I think that something that I really admire because I think there's a lot of directors that can make a horror movie or any movie in general that plays it safe and sticks to the tropes. But Ari Aster came swinging with Hereditary that defied pretty much all common horror staples, and everybody loved it, and it was what the people wanted, and I think he knew that deep down, fought to make the movie what it should be, and I admire that. So I definitely think I'm excited to see where his career goes. I think he's definitely off to a fantastic start with 2 outrageous movies already, so I'm excited.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think, he's done wonders, and it's one of those things that maybe it's him, but I think it's also, the fact that both of his major movies have been with A24, who has been on a roll lately with putting out unique, content that is unlike anything else.
I was just talking to someone the other day about how I really like A24 because they're willing to fund the more abstract ideas in film right now.
Yeah.
Like, you could come to them. There's one coming out about a boy that has a lamb head. And I can't imagine what that pitch room was like. But A24 was like, we're in. Don't even say anymore.
They're already halfway through writing the check, and they're like, the guy's got a lamb head, and they're like, oh, let me write faster. Like,
no, they're like, oh, so I need to add a couple more zeros.
Yes. Totally agree about Astor. I think, yeah, again, he's a great pick, and he's got a lot of room to grow still, too, which is awesome. And kind of transitioning into my third pick is another A24 darling, which I believe he was with one of his first movies, which is Robert Eggers, who is the director of The Witch, but also The Lighthouse, which is a episode coming up soon on the drive back, so make sure you tune in. But he is incredible because he's devoted to a sense of realism, because both of his movies have taken place in the past, with The Witch taking place during the Puritan times, and The Lighthouse taking place during the 1890s. The language is appropriate for the time, whether it's Old English or it's more New England style, broken smatterings of English, or whatever the heck Willem Dafoe was speaking in that movie. But also just artistically, like The Witch is an incredible looking film. And then you get to The Lighthouse, which is in 4:3, so it's like full screen, and it's presented like it was filmed during that time, or close to, maybe like in the 30s or 40s, and just looks incredible. And I'm so excited to see where he goes next. I don't know what his next movie is going to be. I think it's a Viking horror movie.
I'm so down for that.
Which
That's awesome.
Sounds incredible. And I think it had a great cast announced too, which I think Anya Taylor-Joy is coming back for it, which is sweet. I think she deserves so much more work.
Yeah, I think something that's so cool about him is that his movies, as interesting as they are on their own, plot-wise and story-wise, like, they're almost period pieces in and of themselves, which almost adds to it. Like, you're looking around, and yes, the story is incredible, but if you went frame by frame, every frame has something really interesting because it's also period accurate to whatever time the film should have been taking place. So I think a huge credit. I think he takes really very careful care when he's making his films, and you can tell when you watch them.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just incredible work. But let's go ahead and move on. Fourth pick. And I know we've got some big ones left to talk about on both of us.
My next one is Wes Anderson. By the time you're listening to this, we should have just reviewed The Grand Budapest Hotel, which was, I believe... I think I've seen Wes Anderson films, as I said, but I don't think I didn't know them. So that was my first venture. But if that is anything to go off of, knowing he has more movies, I'm racing to watch them. And I cannot wait what is it, The Dispatch?
The French Dispatch is the next movie.
French Dispatch. I'm going to run to the theater to see that because I loved The Grand Budapest Hotel and I loved his style and his aesthetic, so I'm all for it, and I'm so excited for anything he does moving forward.
Oh, yeah, and the fact, like, he already has his next movie planned, and the cast includes, like, Bill Murray and Tilda Swinton and a couple of the usuals, but now also includes Tom Hanks and Margot Robbie.
Oh wow.
Like I'm just excited that the Anderson cinematic universe is growing
Yeah.
of actors. But yeah,
Superstar. Yeah, crazy.
I'm gonna eat my shorts again because like I used to think he was super pretentious and just art housey, and then we watched the Grand Budapest Hotel, and I was just like, wow.
Life changing.
Not life changing, but like as close as you can get. Like just completely like I was wrong, and I love admitting when I'm wrong when I find something new from it. So
Sure.
definitely enjoy that. But let's move on. My fourth pick is one that would tie for my number one,
Ooh.
given that Nolan's not on my list because he's on yours. But a very very easy choice to make: Quentin Tarantino. I mean, he created movies in the 90s and we're kind of sticking to the 2000s and on, but I really feel like he came into his own in the 2000s, presenting us movies like Inglourious Bastards and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Django Unchained, all these movies that, if anything, like allowed him to really flex his muscle and then, you know, stand on his own. And then make his own visual style and his own acting style and how he directs people. It's just incredible work he's done. And Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is essentially his magnum opus, as maybe imperfect as it may be, and it might drag on a little bit, but it's still an incredible film.
Yeah, and I would agree that even though he did stuff in the 90s, I feel like in the 2000s he kind of became a household name.
Oh yeah.
I think before that he was more just like, oh yeah, didn't he direct Kill Bill? Then he really became like that's the director to look out for, especially because his whole like 8 movies thing. But didn't he like pass that already?
I think he's trying to do 10. So I think he's got one more movie he's gonna do, and then he's retiring. I don't know for sure.
What a move!
It's a power move.
It is a power move. But yeah, I completely agree. I definitely think he's he's not an upcoming director, but I hope he's one that's here to stay. It sounds like he might be on his way out here in the next 5 years or so, if he retires. But
unless he gets the right projects.
But he's said for like 12 years that he's only going to make 10 movies. You can't just be like, I was lying.
But I mean, it sounds like he would make an 11th film or whatever if it's his R-rated Star Trek that he had pitched. So
which would be so cool.
It'd be interesting to see, definitely. So, but yeah, he's a worthy inclusion on the list. I think it's more fitting to put him in the 2000s on group instead of the 1990s through the 70s, just because he put more movies out that are becoming more iconic, in the last 20 years. So, but last pick, Adrian, your, I guess for lack of a better term, number one. But what is your last pick to go into the top 10?
It is Guillermo del Toro, who for me did Pan's Labyrinth, as well as Pacific Rim, the first one, which is just awesome to me. But just a great director and someone who's also just kind of like Ari Astor, willing to take risks with his films, and whether that's keeping them in a foreign language for the sake of the movie, or like pretty much doing whatever he needs to do to make sure that the movie keeps its integrity. He sticks to his guns. And he's created, I think, we gave Pan's Labyrinth 100. He's definitely created some of the most phenomenal works, and I hope he continues to do so. He's definitely one where if a trailer says directed by Del Toro, I look at the person next to me and I'm like, we're gonna go see that, right away.
Absolutely. I mean, even like The Shape of Water, which was the Oscar winner a couple of years ago. The first fantasy movie to ever win an Oscar after Lord of the Rings 3, which is huge. That genre never gets recognized at the Oscars. Yeah. So hopefully it will this year with The Green Knight. But he absolutely incredible. And his next movie, I believe, is called Nightmare Alley, which sounds like it's going to have a lot of... it's got a lot of early buzz, but I don't even think it's been previewed yet, so I don't know.
I haven't heard anything too deep about it.
But sounds like it will be very interesting. And a huge patron for practical effects and model making and costumes and makeup. Especially if you watch the incredible Hellboy movies. That's his style in a nutshell. So,
and that's what adds to the movie so much, is it's all in camera. At least a ton of it is actually filmed. It's all practical.
Yeah.
Which adds to the realism, and it feels unique and stylish, and it's amazing.
Yeah, even the giant fighting robots that tore up Beijing and all that, those were all in camera. Visually.
Yeah, that was actually miniatures. Yeah, so that was crazy.
Miniature robots. But yeah, definitely an amazing pick, and definitely deserves to be on the list. But my last pick is the one, besides Christopher Nolan, I would say is the top director working right now. And that is Denis Villeneuve, who did the incredible Arrival, also Sicario, the incredible acting piece Prisoners, which not a lot of people get enough attention on, has a great performance from Hugh Jackman and Jake Gyllenhaal, but also the incredible Blade Runner 2047 that was released back in 2017, and now Dune, which is coming out this year, which early reactions are saying it is a masterpiece. So actually, that was being stated by one of the earlier mentions on this list, Chloe Zhao, who I guess got to see it early. Said that it is a masterpiece. So I am beyond excited for Dune. I mean, I already was. But
the final trailer looks incredible.
Oh boy, just some of those shots are so beautiful. Like I feel my eyes melting in the theater. I'm just like, I want to watch.
I re-downloaded the book to read it again, the first one, just so I can get all caught up on everything that's supposed to happen.
Oh, there you go. Because I think there's plans to carry on making more of
it. There's 6 books, I believe, and some of them go forward in time and some go back. So there's a big world for them to create.
Yeah, I mean, we'll just see. And honestly, I hate to say this, it just depends on how the box office numbers show. Which right now you can't look at that. Like you can't look at box office numbers right now.
Well, so, Scarlett Johansson might have a say in how that works out.
Well, true. Yeah. And unfortunately...
But I completely agree. Arrivals is absolutely an incredible movie. I love that movie so much.
Yes.
Again, such a challenging concept that a director was able to convey language at such a basic form and show the impact of language. Just an incredible film all the way around. Super, super talented.
Yeah. And because of that, deserves the spot on our list. Which that brings us to our top 10 directors working in the industry today, essentially from the 2000s on. We'll go through that list one more time. It includes Christopher Nolan, Guillermo del Toro, Joe and Anthony Russo, Ari Astor, Wes Anderson, Quentin Tarantino, Edgar Wright, Denis Villeneuve, Robert Eggers, and Jordan Peele. So those are the 10 directors that we have selected. This was a lot of fun. Like doing a combined list making instead of clashing because we have the same thing multiple times. But
this is our end game. That's what I've decided.
I'm waiting for the portal over my left shoulder. But
it's there.
Anyhow, but Adrian, for the love of all that is out there in just film in general, like if someone listening or watching does not know where they can find us, where can they find us online?
Yes, well, if you are listening to us, go ahead and subscribe to us on whichever platform you're listening. We are housed there, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, all that good stuff. If you're watching us and you can see us, go ahead and hit that subscribe button here on YouTube. We do post exclusive content here, which are just like mostly major releases that have just come out. We try to put out reviews faster than our weekly rotation. So you can go ahead and find us here, hit the bell, make sure you get notified. That way you can decide if that brand new blockbuster hit is watching. And then if you want to just talk to us, give us a chat on Instagram. We are the Drive Back Podcast. You can find us there. We post every time we post a new video. And we talk to fans there, and they kind of give us some movie suggestions, or they comment on some of the movies that we've watched, whether they like them or not. But you can always find us there and give us some recs and just chat. We're always there.
Absolutely. And then beyond that, if you would like to see any in-depth reviews, we occasionally post them here on the YouTube channel with larger blockbuster releases. We were supposed to do a Suicide Squad one, but it looks like we haven't had the time to do that. But if you want some more, you can go to my film blog below, which I will link somewhere right here, GarrettO'KeefeFilm.blogspot.com, where I post my reviews after seeing them in the theater. By the time this comes out, there should be a Free Guy review, so make sure you check that out. But other than that, that's going to be an end for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we'll see you next time on The Drive Back. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Drive Back. Make sure to be on the lookout for new episodes every Monday. And make sure to follow us on social media.